In this video, we're going to continue on, and this is part 7. And what we're going to do here is basically create what we call interpolation. And what is interpolation? Well, basically calculating as we hover over a line to calculate what's the value of it and put a dot in there. And this is a real tricky formula, so I hope you're ready for this. So let's start to work on this right now. Now let's continue on with part 7. And what we're going to do now is creating one of the toughest items, which is what we call interpolation. So interpolation basically is calculating, for example, in this case, we have this line here. And I'm right now hovering on this part here. And I want to know what is the value of this point here. And you can see that's 10.9 or 90 or 97. So this is what we call interpolation, is figuring out what would be the point or the value here when we make this imaginary line here. Well, we're not having here these dots as we can see here. So for this, because this is really a challenge, it was for me a real mind twister to figure out, we need to convert this into a straight line. So I'm not able to figure out currently with a curved line like this, with the Bezier curves. So we're going to convert this into a straight line. So I'm going to scroll down here. And let's scroll down here, search for the tension. There you are. And then we're going to say tension. We'll put on 0. Save. Refresh. So now it is a nice straight line and elastic. And this is easier for us, but still quite challenging. Alright. What we're going to do now is we're going to create a new function. And that will create basically a dot. And that dot needs to be consistently pointed on wherever I hover, but I must follow the line. So this is very important to do, or to use some advanced formulas for this. So let's scroll down here, here at the bottom, and in here what I'm going to do here is I'm going to give this a proper function name, and I'm going to call this the crosshair point. And let's call it crosshair without h, a small h, crosshair point. And then here we're going to do the same thing, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this, scroll up here, and you can see here we have this. There's a crosshair point, and then we're going to copy these commands here, the chart and the mouse move. Those are essential for us. So what I'm really doing is basically make a separate function for that point, which makes sense because we want to keep it all as separate as possible, but they must be triggered together. The label and the point and basically the crosshair lines all need to be triggered at the same time. So now we have this. Let's put that in here, and then we can say here again chart, comma, mouse move. There we are. And then what I'm going to put in here now is the constant, and we can basically copy this command here and even these two here below. So let's copy all of this, put it in there. There we are. So now we have this, and all of these commands are basically the same as previously. So now what we're going to do is we need to figure out a few things. So let's look at what we need to do. Well, first of all, we must know the index number. And what I mean by the index number is when I'm hovering on this point here, what is the index number we'll be basically triggering? This is very important. And you can see here, if I scroll here and move, or not scroll, sorry, if I hover over here, you will see that it will get here on Tuesday and this is on Monday. But I don't want this. And the reason why is because this is index 0 and here's index 1. So what I want to do is the moment I surpass basically this segment here, this is what we call a segment. So this is the tick that we surpasses. This is the tick, and within the tick we have the segment. So the moment we surpasses the segment and this tick here, then we should have index number 1, because its relevance, the reference is always this here compared to where we are on the line here. And this sounds all very complicated. The truth is it is, but don't worry, if you follow along, it's easy to create the same effect. So let's start to create the first thing, which is just the shape itself, which is a circle. And that is probably the easiest part of it. So I'm going to scroll down here, and then I'm going to just say here, ctx dot, and then what I want to do here is say begin path to start a new element or a shape, and then I'm going to say here ctx dot fill style for the background color, and in this case the background color could be, what I will do, I will make a red dot for now, and then a a border around it that will be, for example, black. So that's just very simple. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy here a color, or let's say here this color. This should be the red color. So I'm going to grab this color. So it will become a solid red dot. And then I'm going to say ctx dot stroke style, which is for the borders. And then in here, or let's make this hashtag 666. So once we have this, what I want to do next is I want to define the line width. So I'm going to say ctx.line width, which is for the border, and just say 3 pixels. So it's nice, simple 3 pixels. And then what I want to, and this will be important because we're going to use an arc here. And this is an arc command, and the arc creates circles. It can create arcs as well, or curved lines, but it is a circle that we're going to work on. So what I'm going to say here, because it's a circle, I want to make or use a simple command for that, which is the angle. And basically what I'm going to use is here the math.pi with capital P and capital I, and then divide by 180. If you wonder why, 1 pi equals a half circle. So that would mean if a circle is 360, half of it is 180 degrees. And what I want to have is just a single degree, so it's very easy later on to work with. And if you know Chartjs, this is very familiar item. So that's basically with the rotation. So that is, I don't have to explain this too much. Basically, it's the same methodology. So then, what I want to do next is I'm going to draw the circle. I'll put that in here. And then we're going to say here ctx.arc. And then because we have here 5 items, I'm going to put them here nicely within this. So I'm going to say here, this will be the X position. Then we have the Y position. We have here the angle, or the, sorry, not the angle, the radius. That's the radius. And then what we have is the angle start. Then we have angle end, and I will explain them later on. And then we have here counterclockwise. So counterclockwise. And in this case, counterclockwise will be false. We just want the clockwise shape. So here the X and Y are basically the values we need to get. But luckily, we can get this one here already, which is the X value. The X value is, of course, will be matching on this here and then wherever you would hover on. But the Y value is variable, while the X value is solid on this line here. Well, basically, they're both variable, but one has no real formula, while the other will have a formula. That's what I'm trying to say here. So I'm going to grab this here. So once I get this, put that in there. There we are. So then, what I want to do here, for the Y value, I'm just going to put in here 20. This is a solid value, and we're going to change this later. Change later. For the radius, that will be basically the circle. How many pixels a circle is? A radius is basically from the center to one side. So that means if you have a radius and it's 5 pixels, that means the length of the full circle is 10 pixels. So in this case, I'll just say radius of 5. And then we have here the angle, and the angle is just the degree that we want. So we say angle equals 0 degrees, which is basically 0. We could put in 0, and the other one here, angle, is multiplied by 360. So we have a full circle. So if I have this, and then I'm going to say here semicolon, enter. And what I want to do now is to draw the shape, so we can get that. So I'm going to say here ctx.fill, and that's for, because that's only for the background color or the filled shade. And then I want to have the border color as well, so ctx.stroke for the border. Save, refresh. Alright, so now as you can see here, and I noticed something here, somehow we're grabbing the dotted lines from another command. So somehow I forgot somewhere to undo that one. So don't worry, what we can do here is just to overrule that previous command. So I'm going to say here ctx.set line dash, and then we're going to say here brackets, and like this. So we will not set any number here. Don't set a number like because you know that first one would be solid and the other one would be transparent. You might say, all right, if I just do it like this, don't do this. I did this before, but this is not good because it doesn't support some browsers. So if you just do it like this, it just says, sorry, we don't have a dashed line here, and every browser understands this. So make sure you do it like this. Once we did that, Alright, so there we have our first item, but now we need to make sure that this will go up and down, so we get the interpolation to figure out where are we going to be in here. So to do this, the first thing what we need to do here is to look how can we get the index, because you can see here, look at here at the bottom, we have this here. If I hover over here, halfway through it will start to move the index here from 0, and this is index 1 because it's halfway here, and then here somewhere again. And I don't want this because this to that here should be considered always index 0. So basically this is the ticks here and the segments. So we're going to work on this now. So what I want to do here is the following. I'm going to create here a command, and let's look what we need to do here, or how would we be able to do this. So what we need to understand here is we need to get here the full width of this. And then once we have the full width of this, we can start to work on calculating the x coordinates, which is this one here. So, and that comparison will give us, are we within this item here? Sounds all very complicated, and it was very much for me, but don't worry. So let's start to work on this first. So what I'm going to do here, we're going to get here a few items. What we need here, first of all, is to know how many ticks we have. We have 7 ticks here, but we need to calculate automatically and not put in a solid number. We have 7 ticks, but the segments are 6 because from here to here is 1, here, and etc. etc. So what we're going to do here now is we're going to use a command, and for that we're going to do console log first. I'm going to say here x, and this is the scale. I'm going to refer to this one here. So if I save that, refresh, open up developer tab. Let's refresh one more time just in case. Then click on this and let's search for the item. So what we really need here is if we scroll down here, we can find here the value range, which is very good to have, or else we can use here this one as well. And this is basically the one we need to have anyway. However, there's a quick note. You see here the underscore. Officially, it's not recommended to use the underscore, and the reason why is that if there would be a Chartjs 4, which is in process of making, or there are plans for it, they might change this structure here. These are basically items that they want to change, but they don't know yet how. So this might impact our code if ever we will have another version of it. But anyway, I don't care for this for now. We're just going to work on this. I want to make it ready for Chartjs 3. So I'm going to grab this here, and you can see here all of these values here, and this is very, very important. We have here a length of 7, and you can see here all of the items. You can see here 0. Let's click on this. You can see here tx1 38, which is probably this item here. And then we go to tx1. Well, you can see here both of these are identical. So this one should be ignored. But if we look here at this one, tx1 index number 1, and this is index 0, we have here 135. So that will mean this to that should be approximately 100 pixels. Well, to be exact, 97 pixels, because 38 minus 137, or that minus this. So what I'm going to do now is, because we have here all of this, we can grab here with this loop, basically a for loop, we can start to grab these items. So what I'm going to do now is, let's put in here dot first, and underscore, I'm going to just grab the item, which is the grid lines, underscore grid line items, with a S and a capital I, and it says a index here, basically, but I needed to know what I indicated. I need to know how many segments we have. Well, what we can do here, length minus 1, will give us the answer for this. So what I'm going to do here now is, I'm going to create a for loop for it first of all. I'm going to say here, let I equals 0. And we say I will semicolon here. We're going to loop through this based on how many of these grid line items we have, dot length minus 1. Why minus 1? I want to have only from 0, we only have 6 segments, but we have 7 ticks. It's very important. And we say here, I++. Alright, so now we have this, and all I want to do now is just console log. And what I want to grab here in this case, I'm going to grab the items here, and just say here, index I, whatever the index would be, based on the loop, plus, and then I'm going to do this, I want to grab here the tx1. If I do this, save, refresh. Now if I hover, All right, we get an undefined. Interesting. So let's see what is going on here. So you have the x. Oh, sorry, my bad. Make sure we have here only one underscore. Save, refresh. There we are. So in the beginning, because of the animation, it will give you an error, as you can see here. It will temporarily give you an error until it is fully loaded. So that's very important to understand. So once it's fully loaded, it will work fine. And you can see here, we get all of the information here. And in this case, what I want is, I don't want even to grab this one anymore. No need. Save, refresh. All right. So now it's loaded. We get all of these items here. And basically what I want to do now is here, I want to do another one. This plus, and then here we can just say plus 1. Well, the reason why we do plus 1 here, because we need to have the starting point and the ending point, which is this plus that. So if I save that, refresh. There we are. All right, so now we have this here. So now what I want to do is create an if statement to check when we are hovering on one of these items here within this range. I want to say we are in segment 1 or segment 0, segment 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're going to say an if statement, and this if statement will grab these numbers here, but also the item itself. So what I mean by that is the export. We're going to grab this. We're going to compare this, and if this is larger or equal to this pixels here, that's what I'm trying to say here. Are we within that range? Yes or no? So with this here, and then we say also and. We can do this basically again, but now we're going to say here, this one will be plus 1. That's this one here. So we can just remove this. If that is the case, if this is true, console log I, save, refresh. All right, so I let it load, and then here. All right, do we have here? Interesting, doesn't work here. Am I correct? There we are, and if we go here, are you on index 1? No. Here. All right, so interesting. We have a mistake here, I guess. So let's see what's going on here. And, oh, all right. As you can see here, look what I'm doing, mistake here. And I copied this without thinking about it, my bad. So what I'm trying to do here is the following. If core X, which is the mouse coordinate, is within this range, or is bigger than this, and if the mouse coordinates is smaller compared to this one, in that case I. Let's say that again, do refresh. Now we say here 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Are we missing 6? I have a feeling we're missing one. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, sorry, this is correct. The reason why this is correct, we have 6 segments, so the segments start with 0, 0, and this is 5, which is fine. Sorry, my bad. That is all correct. As you can see, as I told you earlier, this is a real mind twister. Anyway, so this works. So now, what I want to do now is get basically the starting value here. We have this starting value here. That must be in pixels, so that this one will start here. So I'm going to put that in here as well. So how do we do that? Well, basically we can say here the y start, basically, and the y start is, let's see, what is the y start? We have to think very carefully here. I'm going to make it in here, probably. So I'm going to say let y start. So this is the y starting point. And what is the y starting point? Well, basically, it's this. We say the y, we say dot, and say here, get the pixel for the value. And the value is basically this starting point here. When we're hovering on, this is the starting point. But if you're on this segment, it goes in here. Because we have the index here, so this gives us immediately the answer. And all we need to do here is to get the data. Basically, what I want to do is just scroll all the way to the top here to get this part. Let's see here. To get this part here. That's what we're really doing here. But we're going to do it all automatic, of course. So I'm going to say here, data sets, and I'm going to assume here data set 0. And say dot data, and then here we need to get what we call the index. The index, in this case, is the I that we created. If I'm not mistaken, that should be the I. And if I save this, And then what I can do here, semicolon, and maybe what we could do here, because this one needs to be moved to the upper part. So I'm going to cut this out, put it here up, because we have to be within this functionality here in the if statement itself. So we have this, and I'm going to say here, let's get the y starting point now. So save that, refresh. All right, so now, interesting, as you can see here, as you can see, there we are. We're now getting closer. We're now jumping in the right location. But of course, we're not done yet. So what we have to do now, of course, is to create the formula. And how do we create the formula? Well, we need to have the starting and the ending point for the y. Remember, we have this here. This is the starting point in pixels here. Now I need to know the pixels of this point here. And, oh, this is interesting. We get here apparently something as well. I need to probably later on check how we can avoid this kind of weird effect. So then what I'm going to do here is copy this. I just go to copy this and just say here y end. And the y end is this one, or sorry, not that one, is the I plus 1. Identical to that, but that's the ending point. So if I save this, refresh, nothing will happen here because it is not really connected with that. However, what we have to do here is the following. Let's see, which is now calculating the movement here. This is the one we're going to do now, and this is real challenging, so pay attention here. So what I'm going to do here is, how do we calculate the movement? So that's basically how we're going to do it. I'm going to explain to you how we do it in the logic. So as we go up here, basically we can do a formula. This and this, the differences between those two, that needs to be calculated in pixels. And then as we move here, by every pixel here, we have like a formula increment or decrement of this, depending on if we're going up or down. If we're going up, let's say every pixel, maybe going up here 2 pixels, 3 pixels every time, or 1 pixel every time we move 1 pixel. So we have this gradual item going up. So this is very important. So how do we calculate that then? All right. So we're going to say here, we're going to do plus, and this plus will be based on, and we're going to say here the y end minus the y start. This would indicate if we have an increase or a decrease in the line. The y end is this one, and the start, so this means higher compared to this, is the lower. So the difference here, how many pixels that is, that will be the impacted one. So once we have that, what we need to do next is we need to calculate, because this is in a formula based on here, on this width here. And this width here is basically the segment. So what we're going to do is we're going to calculate the full width of this divided by the segment, or the total segment. So in this case, what I'm going to do here, this part, I'm going to divide this, and I'm going to give this a priority as well. This is very important. Stay with me. This is a really tough one. So I'm going to say here the width, and this will be a priority as well. And then here, we're going to deduct this by what exactly? Well, by our grid line length minus 1. That's the one we have here. Maybe I'm going to just say here segments. That's probably better. I'm going to create here quick constant. Say constant segments equals this. All right. Then I'm going to say here copy, put that in there so it's easier to follow. And then here divide by segments. So the moment we do this, we should see here now some form of incrementing, although not even sure if this is really work because we're still not even done with the formula. But let's see what happens. All right, so we have here something, not really, I guess. Doesn't really do anything. It plus these kind of things here, and so that doesn't work yet. All right, so what we want to do then, next here, is the following. I'm going to say this should be eventually multiplied by what exactly. So what I'm really doing here is we need to have the multiplier, because this segment here gives us a certain value, and then we need to multiply by the amount of pixels we are moving here, so it will slowly go up. That amount of pixels is dependent on the x-core, which is this one here. Where are we within that segment? And then how we're going to calculate it, we're going to divide minus, and then what we're going to say here is basically we can just maybe get the item here. Where is that one? I need to grab this here, the X item that. All right. So why are we doing the deduction? Oh, copy this, do it again. Why are we doing this deduction? Because the X core will give us this point all the way from the beginning here. So what I need to do is then, I need to know what is this point, that excess needs to be removed, or else our formula will not be correct. So once we have this, and then if we save this, let's see if it works now. I think it does. There we are. Absolutely phenomenal. And this took me such a long time to figure out. And there we are. This works, and we had this weird one here. Let's see if this works. It's gone. All right. It's also removed because the effect is now gone. And that's it. So this is now what we call interpolation. Now we have calculated interpolation only on a straight line. Again, for Bezier curve, it's really tough. I have no answer for that one yet, maybe in the near future. So this is finally this part. Now we can basically create our next item, and that will be the next video. We're going to have, of course, the second data here below. So we have the bars of it.